So My Hero Academia Chapter 403 is finally out. And sweet mother of all that is holy, was this chapter worth the wait? This is hands down the biggest chapter of this year and quite possibly in the history of this series. Honestly, how do we top this? Ma, get the camera, we're witnessing history! But before we begin, don't forget to Detroit smash that subscribe button to keep up to date with all the Lunchtime Crew / My Hero content. And so, without further ado, let's jump right into My Hero Academia Chapter 403, titled The End of an Era. And this chapter opens up with a brief flashback to a time before All Might, where we see a child, Toshinori Yagi, sitting down laughing and smiling, reading a comic book about a superhero alongside his mother. That's right, Mama Toshinori has been revealed, and the fan art shall ensue. During this flashback, All Might's narration explains that unlike the rest of his peers and so many others, he actually had a very normal childhood, growing up with loving parents and enjoying the simplicities of life. Compared to that of other heroes, it's really not much of an inspiring origin story. Yet, despite this, he still looks back proudly of where he came from and of the path he chose in life, noting how important his decision to become the symbol of peace turned out to be. And as the scene fades out, we see adult All Might standing at the end of a path, looking backwards as globules of light dance along the road behind him. Okay, come on, I mean, can there be any bigger dead flags? And following this foreboding vision, the story cuts right back to the present, where we see All For One smiling a grin of pure ecstasy and evil while telling All Might he won't get to choose how he dies, as it's revealed that before the gauntlet could explode, All For One pierced and destroyed it with his spikes quirk, negating the explosion entirely. Wait, if that had stopped the explosion, then what exploded last chapter? Did something else explode randomly? But anyways, having stopped All Might's final act of self-sacrifice, All For One decides it's finally time to deal with the #1 hero once and for all, wasting no time in licking the hero's blood off his hand and activating Stain's stolen quirk, completely paralyzing All Might. Ironic, isn't it, how Stain's quirk will be the reason his idol falls. Now, unable to move and utterly helpless, All Might watches in pure terror as his arch nemesis and the incarnation of evil itself grins so wide the skin at the edge of his face begins to rip apart, that's disgusting, while he prepares to unleash the final blow. Of course, with all eyes on this fight and the symbol of peace's life at stake, the heroes can't just sit around and let this happen. And so, the closest remaining nearby heroes, Gentle and Star's jet pilots, go to rush in and attempt to save the day. But as you would expect, this doesn't go to plan, as All For One, in seeing Gentle still holding up and aiding the floating UA, shoots an energy beam through the structure, causing it to fall again, forcing Gentle to stay put and keeping the structure up. And as the pilots approach, All For One smashes them with his raw strength alone, defeating all of them with ease. If that's all the heroes have left, it's safe to say they've truly and finally run out of options. And so, with no one left to stand in his way, and the world watching in horror, quite literally, as we see shots of people around the world, including Melissa Shield and Gran Torino, either watching and praying for a miracle, or already crying and accepting the defeat of their #1 hero, All For One raises the paralyzed and petrified body of All Might above his head. And as Tsukauchi, Midoriya, and so many others pray and plead for someone, anyone, to save All Might, a massive explosion and beams of light shoot out atop the floating UA. And as Midoriya turns his head in shock to look, he sees standing atop the barely floating structure is none other than the explosion murder god Dynamite himself, Katsuki Bakugo. God damn it, he's so cool! Bakugo, covered in blood and sweat, but now standing upright, sparkling with energy, and holding on to his All Might trading card, looks down at the now crying Midoriya. As the chapter fades back to the path All Might was on at the start of the chapter, except this time he is not alone, as we see a child version of Midoriya and Bakugo holding on to the globules of light, just like how they held onto All Might's trading card when they both first got it. We then see the memory of the two unpacking the card as, in the present, both Midoriya and Bakugo look at each other, with what seems to be energy in their eyes and glowing sparks around both of them, possibly hinting at One For All interacting with Bakugo as the chapter's full title is revealed. The end of an era and the beginning. And that's it for chapter 403. Overall, I've got super mixed feelings about how this chapter played out. On the one hand, All Might should be unalived. Like, absolutely 100% his life should be over, and it's super strange that he isn't yet. Everything was set up for him to be over, and yet despite everything, he's still here? I just don't know how to feel about that. But on the other hand, Bakugo's f***ing back and with a bang. Pun absolutely intended. I mean, the imagery, the power, the hype. Oh god, the hype. It's just too awesome for me to handle. I can't wait to see what happens next. But if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like. For more content like this, subscribe to the Lunchtime Crew. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. It's lunchtime. Bakugo's back, baby! Woo!